Hello students, welcome to another lecture on Understanding Biology chapter 31. We are going to learn about living plant in this chapter. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to explain how to use the water potential to predict the movement of water, explain the role of aquaporins in determining water potential, describe the routes where water can take from soil to the plant vasculature, and describe the function of Casparian stripes. In this chapter, we are going to learn about different day-to-day life activities of vascular plants. As you remember, we learned in chapter 26 the evolution of land plants. Plants actually face three major challenges when they are living in land. One is maintaining water and nutrition balance, creating sufficient structural support for upright growth, and adapting growth to a changing environment. Environment in land is actually changing quite a bit, so these are some of the challenges that the plants actually face in land. So development of vascular tissue was a big landmark in success of plants to adapt to terrestrial environment. The vascular system transport water, mineral and organic molecules between roots and shoot systems. Plant respond to its environment such as wind, light and and adapt to its environment. So it is very important that we know how day-to-day life is going for plants that are living in land. So let's explore how a plant senses these factors, different environmental factors, and respond. So when you think about a plant living in land, like I mentioned, how do they actually transport water? You know that plants are really tall. So the water which is located in soil, that the root has to absorb water and transport this water to a tall shoot system that is very high on the plant. So water transportation is one of the major activities in plants, as water is required for main physiological processes that occurs in leaves. Leaves are usually located mainly long heights, meters above the root, where water and nutrients are absorbed through the roots. So the question is, how does water move against the gravity over such a long distance between root and shoot? Actually, this is achieved by water potential. In plants, water and solutes can move through the porous cell walls through plasmadesmatas. So we did learn about plasmadesmatas. These are actually connection in between these two cells, and water actually can move through the spores of the cell wall and through plasmadesmata. So this is how water moves from one cell to another, and they can actually cross the plasma membrane and also through interconnected vascular system that we have in the plants. This way, when you think about how water first enters to the plant body, they enter through the roots and then move into the xylem. Xylem is the innermost vascular tissue of plants, and once water is in the xylem, water can move against the gravity due to several factors. So these factors actually include the pulling force due to evapotranspiration of water from stomata, which is generated due to the water molecules' ability to stick to each other, which is called cohesion forces, and also due to water molecules' ability to stick to the xylem vessel walls through adhesion. So adhesion and cohesion is actually very important to move these water through the xylem vessels. This results a stable column of water that can travel a long distance. This is how water can move from root system to the shoot system without a disturbance. So here is a picture that shows that how water is transported from the roots where it was absorbed through the xylem tissue, which is the innermost vascular tissue, to the shoot system where evaporation and transpiration is happening using these stomata, which we are going to talk about in a little bit. So when consider the movement of water at the cellular level, which is also very important to understand, and it is very important for the bulk of water movement in plant in short distance. So cellular movement is very important for the water movement overall. And when look at this shorter distance, this force, that is cellular force, is enough. So water actually can diffuse slowly across the plasma membrane. So you know about diffusion, where from higher water concentration to a lower water concentration, water can passively move from one place to another. This is called diffusion. And they can cross the plasma membrane as well. But the only problem with this method is that the charged ions and organic compounds can't pass through this passive diffusion across the plasma membranes. These have to be dependent on facilitated diffusion or active transport to the enter and exit the cells. So they require energy. So energy for this process is actually generated by ATP dependent proton pumps. These pumps create a proton gradient across the membrane. When protons are brought back into the cytoplasm through plasma membrane, according to its electrochemical proton gradient, this generates large amount of ATP, which now can be used for active transportation of these ions and other compounds. So water can also diffuse through plasma membranes due to unequal concentration of solutes, and this process is called osmosis. So osmosis is also very important. So the forces that can act on water to drive its movement within a plant are explained in the terms of potentials. So you might have heard about potentials before. Let's look into water potential. Potential are a way of representing free energy. Water potential, or PSIW, is used to predict the direction of water movement from one place to another. Water will move from cell or solution with a higher water potential to a lower water potential. So water potential measured in units or pressure called megapascals. So I mentioned about osmosis earlier. So we all know about hypotonic, hypertonic and isotonic solutions. Just to refresh your memories, when a cell is placed in each of these solutions, depending on water or solute concentration, we can predict the movement of water by osmosis. So let's first consider hypotonic solutions, which has low solute concentration and high water concentration. We know that water moving from higher water concentration to a lower water concentration. When a cell placed in such solution which has higher water concentration, what happen? The higher water concentration inside the cell has high solute concentration and low water concentration. When water will move into the cell, because inside the cell is lower water concentration and higher solute concentration. Outside the cell, the solution has higher water concentration. So water will move from high water concentration to low water concentration, and then water will come into the cell. Opposite will actually happen in hypertonic solution, as solution itself has less water and high solute concentration, which indicate that the inside of the cell has higher water, and water will go out from the cell and cells start to shrink, or we call this plasmolysis. So when you think about water potential, it actually water potential, we need to pay attention to two components. So the physical forces such as pressure on a plant cell wall or gravity, as well as concentration of solutes in each solution. We have to consider both of these components to get the total water potential in a cell. Let's first look into physical forces. Contribution of gravity or water potential is so small that it is not included in this calculation. But the turbo pressure resulting from the pressure against the cell wall is reflected to as pressure potential. As turbo pressure increases, pressure potential increases. So when turbo pressure increases, the pressure potential is also increases. As you can see in this picture, pressure from cell wall is opposite direction of the turbo pressure. So turbo pressure we do consider, because when turbo pressure increases, the pressure potential is also increases. Only thing that we do not consider is the gravitational force. So the next consideration we need to think when we calculate the total water potential in a cell is the concentration of solutes in each solution. So it is called a solute potential. So water potential can increase when solutions are separated by a membrane which have different tonicity. When you apply pressure on the side of the membrane that has the greater concentration of solutes can prevent osmosis. Small amount of pressure needed to stop osmosis is equal to the solute potential of the solution. Pure water actually pure water has solute potential of 0. As the solution increase the solute concentration, it decrease the solute potential. So solution with higher solute concentration have more negative solute potential. So solute potential is also very important to consider. When you calculate total water potential, it is the sum of its pressure and solute potential. When a cell is placed in a solution, you can actually consider both of the pressure and solute potential to calculate the total water potential. So the rate of water movement across the membrane is enhanced by these holes in the membrane. Plasma membrane is called aquaporins. Aquaporins are actually channels through which water can move. These transport channels can be found in plasma membrane of both plants and animals. As you can see in this picture, it actually facilitates faster diffusion of water. So what you need to remember is that water selective pores are called aquaporins, and then they actually facilitate the movement of water, and that is important. So now we are going to talk about how water is actually absorbed from the soil and how is it moved to the xylem through roots, and then from xylem how is it going to go to the shoot system. So most water is absorbed by a plant, enter to the region of the root called the region that has the root hairs. Root hairs are extension of the root epidermal cells that increase the surface of the area that allow the absorption of water from soil. So you can see in this picture, these are seedlings. You can see this fuzzy looking area is the root hairs. So water and minerals are absorbed from the soil through these the root hairs. And also you learn about these mycorrhizal fungi when we talk about fungi in our previous lecture. The surface area of the root is further increased by these mycorrhizal fungi, and then water and minerals must move across cell layers until they reach the vascular tissue. So water and dissolved iron then enter the xylem and move through the plant. So water can be transported from roots via three transport routes. Once water absorbed into the roots via root hairs, water first have to move across the cell layers until they reach the vascular tissue, like we mentioned earlier. So the three routes that we need to remember are apoplastic route, symplastic route, and transmembrane route. So the apoplastic route is actually where movement of water is actually happening through the cell walls and space between cells such as plasma desmata. This path actually avoids the membrane transport. In the symplas route, the movement of water is through the cytoplasm between connected cells through plasma membrane without crossing the plasma desmata without crossing the membranes. So the both routes actually does not cross plasma membrane. The first route, the apoplastic route, goes through the cell walls and space between the cells. Symplastic route goes through the cytoplasm and through the connection are called that plasma desmata. The last route, which is called transmembrane route, involves membrane transport between cells and cross the membranes of vacuoles within cells. Membrane route actually allows to control over what substances enter and exit the cell. So this is the only route that allow the greatest control of what is absorbed from the soil. So here is a picture that shows all three routes. Each route can change and connect to another. It is not like, oh, this apoplastic has to be apoplastic route. Apoplastic route can start as apoplastic and then become symplastic route, or then become a transmembrane route. Water is just moving through these three routes. One is moving through the small spaces between cell walls. The other is through the cytoplasmic connection through plasma desmata, and the other one involve crossing the membranes. And transmembrane routes is the one that has the most control over what is actually going in and out of the cell. So that is the last slide for this lecture. In summary, transpiration is the evaporation of water from leaves via stomata. This creates a pooling pause in water in xylem. The water potential is the sum of the pressure potential and the solute potential. Water move from area of high water potential to an area of the low water potential. We did talk about aquaporin that increase the rate of osmosis by facilitating the diffusion of water across membranes. Water and mineral move into roots from soil through root hairs. And three water transport routes are the apoplast, symplast, and transmembrane route, which actually transport through All of these have to cross through the endodermis to enter the vasculature. I hope you enjoy this lecture. Until we meet from another, have a good day. Thank you.